Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grid Live Pre-Race. I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. With me is Josh, Julia, Adam, Ed. We also have Joe and Ben at Portland International Raceway preparing to cover the NASCAR Xfinity Series in ARCA West. And before we get started, like we always do, want to give a big shout out to our wonderful Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Deshelle, and Robin. Thank you so much for keeping us on the air. It's even more valuable on weekends like this when we have live coverage at the racetrack. This weekend, very busy. World Rally Championship, Formula E, MotoGP, IMSA, INDYCAR, and the NASCAR Cup Series at Gateway. But first, let's hear an update from Ben and Joe at PIR.
Portland International Raceway hosting the NASCAR Xfinity Series for the first time ever. Very exciting race weekend. And Ben, yesterday we saw several big surprises, from Noah Gragson crashing out in first practice on the front straightaway. Said it was a very wet track. We saw in qualifying, Anthony Alfredo, he took the pole. Of course, that third final qualifying session was canceled. Do you anticipate we're going to have more big surprises? And who are some of the drivers you're going to be watching? Especially right now, it's trying to rain. The forecast shows it will be a rain, and everyone's anticipating a wet track.
Yeah, well, I think the forecast is showing that it's definitely going to rain a lot more than it is right now. I think it's kind of going on and off, just kind of spitting a little bit. Not much unlike what it was yesterday, but who I'm looking out for, obviously, if it rains, you have to look at AJ Allmendinger. Thinking back to what he did at the Charlotte Roval a couple of years ago and that insane downpour that we had there. And Noah Gragson and Daniel Hemrick finished right behind in second and third that race, so they've obviously been able to adapt to weather in the past before. You might not know what happened to Gragson yesterday, but I think he can put that behind him. He's going to a backup car, so it might set him back a little bit, but he's obviously a very good driver with a very good team, so maybe keep an eye out on him as well. And the way the season's been going, Ty Gibbs has been able to adapt very well to any condition. He won on his debut on a road course at Daytona, so it's probably going to be those drivers that you want to look at. And of course, Anthony Alfredo, kind of surprised winning pole position, but anytime you got the pole winner as well, you got to look at him as well.
And of course, one of the big things, everyone, including Anthony Alfredo, when we asked him, he said it is so important to be in those first three starting rows because you don't have live pit stops in this race.
Right.
Since there's no Cup Series here, it's just you're going to have a 3-minute break during the stage to work on the cars, limited rules of what you can do during a caution flag. With this rain, do you still anticipate that advantage of you're in the first three to be really hard to beat, considering, well, in theory, you just got to keep everyone behind you, but we're going to have potentially rain, caution after caution, the festival corners. I mean, it gets the best of drivers in IndyCar. Roman Grosjean last year went out. If it's raining, somebody could go in there and take out quite a lot. You anticipate that advantage is still there in the first three rows.
The advantage will be there if you keep the car clean, but I think that's going to be a tall order today. I think there's going to be a lot of spins and a lot of action going on all throughout the pack, which might be beneficial if you're in the back of the pack and you can avoid it. Those will be free spots that you can advance your position. But certainly, I think the drivers starting certainly in the top 10 that we had, we should have had one final practice or qualifying session rather yesterday. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do that. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. Should the rules maybe change so that we could have had the drivers go on to wet tires, but it is what it is. I think those are probably the drivers that you have to look at if they don't run into trouble and they can hold that advantage.
And trouble, of course, when it comes to the ARCA Menards West Series, they're going to be racing later in the evening, about 4:30 p.m. here. And that's where we're showing it's going to be the heaviest rainfall. They're going to be qualifying, and potentially it might be a dry qualifying if the rain holds off. How crazy is that race going to be? Because we saw last year that first corner, Bridget Burgess, several others got involved. She was up in fourth place until her vehicle broke down. We got Austin. He's in the Napa Toyota, I believe.
Chevrolet.
BMR,
yeah. It's tough to remember, but BMR switched this offseason. So
they switched. So
switching me up too. Yeah.
But yeah, so with everyone in the ARCA and knowing what they're going to go through with this race, do you anticipate they're all going to be watching this Xfinity Series just to see if there's any wet lane in the track?
They're definitely going to be watching. It's weird to kind of have like the undercard race, if you will, the second race. Obviously Xfinity's the main draw here. ARCA West is support race, but their race is a little bit later, so it gives them an opportunity to watch the Xfinity race. And certainly, if the practice qualifying session that they have is going to be dry, I'm not sure there's really anything that you're going to be able to take to use from that, because my radar right now is showing 100% chance of rain basically from 2 p.m. on out. So it's definitely going to be interesting. You've got a lot of drivers that probably don't have too much experience racing in the rain, and or on road courses in general. And now to throw them in with both of those conditions, it's going to be quite crazy, especially if you don't have the wet conditions in the practice session to get used to.
Yeah, the wet conditions, that's going to really, Ericsson said that front straightaway was really, really slick when he lost it. Throwing more rain is going to be something else. And of course, we have a link in the video description to our Friday recap here at Portland International Raceway. Before we sign off, Ben, it's a special pick a winner NASCAR Xfinity race right here in Portland. Who do you see taking the win?
So we are doing pick a winner for Xfinity this weekend. That's great. It's going to be so hard to predict just with everything going on. I guess Alfredo was a surprise to take pole position. So I guess if he can stay out of trouble, we maybe go with him for the win as well. Maybe won't be as much of a surprise as him taking pole. Obviously, he's shown a lot of speed, but it's take that with a grain of salt, because with these track conditions, it's going to be, I think, a free for all and kind of hard to predict a winner.
I'm going to go with a bit of surprise. I saw he qualified in the top 10, and I think he's really motivated that, hey, yeah, we saw somebody else win in my car with
Jay Buford, huh?
Jay Buford. That's who I'm going to go with. I think he's in the top 10. You don't have to worry about the pit strategy. Keep that car clean. And I anticipate it's going to be mayhem. We may get overtime. I know it's not exactly the thing we want, but I see that. I think if he could keep his car clean, avoid the trouble, he's going to be in the top 3. And I anticipate some sort of last lap mayhem between the top 2, and he gets that win.
That would be one heck of a story if Jay Buford can pull that off. Obviously, Tyler Reddick won in that car a couple weeks ago. Austin Dillon's been in that car as well, just kind of reevaluating where their program's at. Jade's back in the car this weekend. I know he's very motivated, like you said, to have a good run. So what a story would be if he can pull off a win.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we talked to him Friday. He was very excited to be here. He has a point to prove, and yep, we'll definitely recap it as well on Sunday's recap show. That's all from Portland right here.
Yeah, a lot of things are going to be happening at Portland International Raceway, especially with the possibility of rain. Saw a really interesting qualifying session yesterday. Well, at least the first round was, because the second round unfortunately got rained out there at the end. That's how Anthony Alfredo was able to start on poles. An interesting pick from you guys. Personally, I think AJ Allmendinger is going to get it done, because who can go wrong with AJ Allmendinger on a road course? But yesterday, AJ said he believes that the team's going to be going to the bat because they have some issues mechanically. So if that's the case, it'd be interesting to see how AJ Allmendinger is going to be able to do coming from the rear of the field. But I'm sure AJ's going to have no problem at all coming from the back to the front, if that's the case. And that's Josh going to talk about a little MotoGP. And thank you, Ben and Joe.
I'm just brilliant seeing them trackside. Really is great fun. Yeah, loads of news in MotoGP. Just 1 week after the last race in Italy at Mugello as well, everything has changed in the motorcycling world as well. To start with, Marc Marquez has undergone a successful surgery on his shoulder as well, and now he's beginning his very long road to recovery as well. We send him our best wishes and hope we see him again soon when he is fully fit as well. And on to this weekend as well. On Thursday, we learned that Fabio Quartararo Quartararo has signed a 2-year deal with Yamaha to continue on the factory bike. And Julia's joining me now as well for the MotoGP segment. And given what we've seen this season with Yamaha, they've been so inconsistent compared to the likes of Aprilia and Ducati. In your opinion, has Quartararo made a mistake or an inspired decision to stick with the team?
This is definitely a tough call to say if he had made a mistake or not. But yeah, I think there wasn't, much space for him to move around between the teams to decide. It's still the situation that Honda is mostly, for example, looking for Joan Mir or for Jorge Martin, when I don't think he would like to be at Ducati, especially that's totally a different bike. And I don't think he would like to be in a team with Pecco, who's definitely the Ducati star. And we can imagine how it would end for him. KTM is not in the shape. Suzuki is leaving. The other Hondas are in not very good situation. And they are looking for someone else. So honestly, I think Quartararo he didn't have much space to move around to choose. Of course, I'm sure his manager was looking around other teams. Aprilia was pretty much wanted Maverick and Alish to stay. So I think it was one of the most obvious and sure decisions of him. We will see how it's gonna affect his future. Taking into account that really Yamaha and other Japanese brands are kind of struggling in MotoGP right now when Ducati is moving up front. Yeah, honestly, I think that Quartararo's that he really wanted to stay with this team. We've seen that he really wasn't sure about leaving, even though he was saying that I am contacting other team. My manager is talking with the team principals, like from Ducati and with Alberto Puig from Honda, but he didn't seem really sure about leaving, and he even said that his main goal was to stay at Yamaha. So I think he is really happy to do so, but of course we will have to find out maybe at the beginning of this year, but also the next season, 2023, how it's gonna work out for him if it was a bad decision.
Brilliantly summed up there about everything in the field as well. It's such a mess everywhere up and down as well. Bagnaia just starting to get good on that Ducati bike as well. But is Jack Miller staying? We don't know. Paul Espargaro, they want rid of him, but they haven't got a Marc Marquez in. The bike can only be ridden by Marquez. It's all a mess as well. The silly season is up and running as well. With Quartararo being taken off the market, it does make it more interesting, and we'll keep you up to date with it here on the Grid Network as well. But still, a lot more drama happened in qualifying, and that took place a few hours ago as well. The 2 sessions as well were full of drama. Q1 had the top 5 separated by 0.033 of a second as well. Vinales and Nakagami were the 2 to go through to qualifying 2, but left behind the likes of Brad Binder, Oliveira, and shockingly for the championship, Enea Bastianini. He starts 14th on the grid. And Julia, given how hard it is to overtake at this track, as if you don't know, we're at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for our viewers as well, is tomorrow's race now damage limitation for Bastianini? Could he even get decent points, which is realistically inside the top 6 positions?
It may be a damage limitation for him, taking into account that the last races we really could have expected Enea to really, to ride well. And he's been crashing a lot in the last races, kind of like Jorge Martin at the beginning of the season. So I think he would like to do his best, of course, but in the end, it may be like a damage limitation for him. His championship he can feel that it's a little slipping away from him. He's not been showing what he wanted to in the last races. And this is the track. It is hard for overtaking. Like, it's a lot tougher than in the other tracks. But also the thing of this season is that we see less overtaking MotoGP, mostly due to that the teams really got engaged in aerodynamics in the bikes. And like we've seen in Mugello, just Miguel Oliveira going to the grass because he was pushed by the air from Alex's Espargaro bike. And this is not the last year like we've seen for so Enea just to move in from 17th place on the grid in Misano to the podium. I don't think it's that possible anymore. The riders, even on the media day before this weekend's race, have been saying that the race in the top 10 and the race for those who are in the other part of the grid, so, from place to 11th to 20th and lower, this is totally a different race for them. Right in the top 10 is, for them, even though they are getting kind of lost after the Ducatis, because of this air and because they can get closer, and riding is a nightmare, but they're still close, and riding in another places slower is, as Joan Mir and Alex Rins said, who had been in the situation in Mugello for quite some time. They were saying that this is a nightmare. So there's always a chance, of course, in MotoGP to get really high, to score as much point as they just can. But honestly, it's hard to say if it's gonna be possible here in Barcelona, even though Bastianini has Ducati combination bike from last year Pecco's bike. It's really hard to say. A week ago, for example, I said that I can win this race when we were picking the winner.
You got close.
Yeah, I got close. It wasn't that bad, but honestly, he had a pace, but it's this crash, and the thing that I think he got a little lost after this good beginning of the season. But I am really curious to see how he's going to do tomorrow, especially that he isn't again in the situation that he'd been really good at last season. So he was from the back, and he was, riding up front. But this, as I said, this season is a little different. So I'm just really curious to see how he's going to manage to do that.
Yeah, that Greneshi bike reminding me so much of the Suzuki from 2019 or 2020, whatever year it was. They all blend into one after a while. But yeah, overtaking is hard. Joe Sammaker says it has started to rain in Portland as well. So the Xfinity is getting very tasty in a few moments' time as well. Also, this last sector here, Sector 3 or Sector 4 in a MotoGP bike, has gone through 5 different layouts in the past 7 seasons as well. So that is completely shocking as well. They've reprofiled turn 10 and they've looped back around turn 13 and 14. We don't use the F1 chicane anymore as well. And they even built a little MotoGP chicane that never ever worked, and they dropped it mid-weekend. So all that money was put to waste. Anyway, moving on to qualifying number 2. And that session was without a doubt the best of the season. Every lap, the times were coming down as the track got hotter and hotter. It was up at 50 degrees at one point as well. The riders really began to push to the limit as well. Oh, as my script's gone off the TV pictures, comes back to me now. Technical issues are fun, aren't they? I think it's actually raining where I am as well. I'm in the UK, so it's happening all over the place. Right, yes, as I was saying, the track got hotter and hotter. It was up at 50 degrees. And in the end, it was Aleix Espargaro who took his 4th career pole and the first ever on home soil here in Spain as well. And Julia, having been fast all weekend long, and he broke the lap record twice today alone, once in practice and once in qualifying, can he now be taken seriously as a title contender on the Aprilia of all things?
Aleix is just so impressive this weekend. This is incredible, to be honest. He's been so fast through the whole weekend. And after Friday, there was Aprilia's 1-2. Now he broke the track record twice, and he first was the fastest in FP3, so in 1 lap pace. Then he was the best in FP4, meaning he has a great pace coming to the race, and he got a pole position. This is just amazing, and it's so good to see Aleix finally performing as he always wanted to. And honest, I think at this moment we can say that Aleix Espargaro is becoming a serious title contender. He's 2nd in the championship as far as I remember.
Yeah.
And he has this great pace. He's been on the podium for the last 3 races. This is just incredible how well Aprilia is doing this season. Mostly, maybe not the whole Aprilia, because the situation with Maverick Vinales is a little different as we see. But generally, Aleix. And I think he may be the main rival for Pecco and other Ducatis, coming into the championship fight. But also, I think he's just the main contender for the win this weekend. Honestly, I think I can't imagine. Of course, there are other riders we should look at. There's Pecco behind him, Fabio behind him. The Pramac riders has a great pace, but he is the favorite for the win, definitely. And as I said, he is really becoming the championship contender because he's got such a great pace. He's really, I don't know even how to say it. It's so impressive to see him just being on the podium from the last races and seeing how much Aprilia just changed over from comparing last year to this year. So honestly, I think this year is gonna be so interesting. Not only we are a little afraid sometimes that we may have Ducati, taking over the championship because we have 8 bikes. There were times that at the end of the last season that there were just 8 of them that were in a row after qualifying. But thankfully, we have Aleix in a really good shape right now, and Aprilia and Quartararo is still doing good. So I think, honestly, we're saying that Fabio and Pecco will be still the main rivals in a title fight, but they should watch out for Aleix.
Yeah, Fabio Quartararo leads the title on 122 points. He's 8 clear of Aleix Espargaro's on 114 as well. And Aleix, after in 205 Grand Prix starts, has only taken pole position now 4 times, won 1 Grand Prix, and that's the only Grand Prix he has won in the Moto era of course, 125cc's, Moto2, Moto3 as well, and MotoGP. So he's 32 years old, and he's in the form of his career. I've never seen this before. It's fantastic. I completely agree with you, Julia, as well. So the front row, as you were on about with Bagnaia and Quartararo, the front row was completed by Bagnaia and Quartararo. They couldn't improve on their lap times overall. Vinales and Nakagami, who got through to Q2 after being in Q1, they start 8th and 12th, respectively. And Julia, with so many top riders displaced on the grid, who are you mainly going to watch out for tomorrow?
Of course, we have to watch the front of the grid. So this is obvious. We always watch the front. So Aleix, Pecco, and Fabio fighting for the win. But honestly, I'm looking also at the second row because we have 2 Pramac riders there who have shown a great pace. I mean, in FP3, as far as I remember, they were just after Aleix, and they're of course slower than them, but they were really fast. So Zarco winning.
Oh, that's great.
That's right. I know. I'm just thinking because maybe finally, I don't know, because sometimes I feel that I will manage to graduate from college and I'm 6 years from this before Zarco's gonna win. But I mean, it could be possible they have pace, but of course the main favorite is Aleix, then there's Pecco and Fabio. But Fabio's pace, as you said, Yamaha is inconsistent. We don't really know what to expect from them every race. But definitely I will be watching for the Pramac guys. And also we have Fabio Di Gianantonio, of course, who just surprised us amazingly during the last Grand Prix. But I don't think he has the space to fight with them, with the top. But then we also, in another row, we have Maverick and we have Alex Rins. Suzuki doesn't seem to have a pace in Barcelona, like the really great pace we could have want. Some, of course, their fans would want, we could have expect from them. They are kind of struggling a little, but it's still possible that maybe they'll find some settings for the race. But we have Maverick, and I'm really, because Aleix, of course, is performing as we see, but the situation with Maverick is different. He has problems. He is the champion of testing. He's always great in testing. But then he has some problems during the race weekends. He's fast in practices, but when it comes to qualifying, he's not doing that good. So it would be interesting to see if he can do as well as Aleix and if he can move up front and maybe even fight for his first podium, as I said, because this is really hard to say how it's gonna really go. Of course, this top 3 from the qualifying they're the main favorites to win, but it will be interesting to see if the others, who really shown they have quite a pace, will be able to put up a fight, with them. As I said, the Pramac guys, I think if Pramac's gonna go with the right settings and everything will go well for them, it is possible that they may fight with this top three. I'm just really curious to see this race, because as far as for the car racing fans, especially Formula One, Barcelona is not the favorite place, because they've been saying that this is kind of boring for them. Then for motorcycles, Barcelona is a place of a great memories and great races, some drama, of course, like even last year with Fabio's suit. So I'm just kind of can't wait for that and see who really gonna come out on top in Barcelona.
It's going to be an absolutely fantastic race. I cannot wait as well. The MotoGP Catalan Grand Prix at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya is tomorrow, and it is not a race to be missed. And it very well could be the best race of the season.
And Josh and Julia, we thank you for your time as always, and let our viewers know you can catch all the MotoGP action on Josh's watch along on his YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe. And with that being said, I'll ask both of you for your picks for the MotoGP, as well as you, Josh, who wins an IndyCar at Detroit and NASCAR at Gateway. So we'll start with MotoGP, and ladies first. Julia, who wins it? Who wins in Spain?
Not surprisingly, I am gonna go with Alish. I think everyone expected that because he has this pace. I think he is ready to win once again, and he's ready to win at his home Grand Prix because he's been going to school just a minute away from the track. He's been living there, when he was saying that when he was a child and he was in school, he was listening to the noise from the track. So honestly, I think he is ready, and I think he really wants to win there, which is also an important factor. And he is ready, and he has the pace. He was faster than Pecco Bagnaia today, and even more faster than Fabio. So, and I think we would like to see this, because this is another title contender. This is another face in winning and another face in the rivalry. So I am going for Aleix because I think he can do this.
Absolutely. I completely agree with Julia on this point as well, because this is going to be Aleix Espargaro's weekend. He's been fast all weekend, as we were talking about a few moments ago. He's got the pace that Aprilia, if just working this season, the new engines finally after that freeze, they've just got that bike in such a sweet spot. But do not count out the fact, as what Julia pointed out as well, we are going to have some serious competition from the Ducati Bagnaia and the Yamaha Quartararo. Front row, it's fantastic. 3 different manufacturers, 3 very different riding styles, 3 very different age groups as well. To turn 1, 871 meters down to the first corner is just going to be fantastic. I can't wait for it. So yeah, Aleix Espargaro, I think he'll come out on top.
And Josh, we also want your picks for the IndyCar race in Detroit.
IndyCar at Detroit, I will go for Joseph Newgarden. Bit of an outside one. I think he deserves to get up there again this year, and I think it's a track he goes well at. And I'll throw into the mix actually as a backup, Will Power. I think he's owed one after last year's mess up when Rosenquist calls the red flag, and the second red flag when he couldn't get the car restarted. So Will Power's a backup. I think Joseph Newgarden is going to look strong.
And NASCAR is in Illinois this weekend at World Wide Technology Raceway, also known as Gateway. It's the first time there, so it's a wild card race. So who wins, Josh?
Yeah, we've seen World Wide Technology Raceway, or Gateway, as you said it was called as well, at the IndyCar as well. It's usually towards the end of the season. It always provides some great racing as well. Safety bet on an oval. Who would I go for? Let's go with Brad Keselowski. Let's throw as a back. He's a good safe backup option for on a new oval as well. He seems to go well at. Always running up in the midfield as well. We saw what he did at Daytona as well on a similar speed circuit. So I'll go with Brad Keselowski.
We thank you, Josh and Julia, for your time. And now I'll throw it over to my colleague, Kobe, as he and Ed recap the Formula E race from a brand new circuit in Jakarta, Indonesia.
Yeah, switching gears now over to FIA Formula E. which made its dramatic debut in Jakarta, Indonesia, with a tense race, which was all about battery management, outwitting your rivals in the qualifying. Though they saw the two DS the Cheetahs take 1-2 on the starting grid with Jean-Eric Vergne dominating his teammate Antonio Villas da Costa, who made several mistakes on his lap and was told to save his tires for the race instead and not to fight hard with Jev. And there really seemed to be a lot of team orders flying around this weekend as we get towards the closing end of the title. Do teams already have number one drivers in mind, or is it still too early?
I think there's a number one here because the number two is about to leave the building, I think, to go do something
Yeah,
else.
I'm disappearing, but I'll quickly answer it because it's just loading up.
Sure thing.
Sorry to cut across. I'll go answer. Yeah, I think as well. I know you disagree with me in the race commentary as well. The team orders do seem to be floating around a bit more today as well. And from what I heard over the radio, they came over when Da Costa was making those mistakes. So they actually talked to the driver on the lap and said, "Back up, don't fight Jev, save the tires for the race." Do not fight with Jev. Do not fight. And that, to me, was a team order. Anyway, I'll throw it back to you now.
Well, I would slightly disagree with that because that, to me, is sort of there's no point trying to fight Jev because he's already lost too much time at that point. And because the rear tires were so limited at Jakarta because of the temperatures, because of the fast corners, it was very easy to burn up the rear tires, essentially. And the Michelins really don't respond well in that situation. So to me, it made absolute sense. It almost didn't make a difference, though, because we saw in the race Da Costa slid off in front of Mitch Evans, which was sort of what enabled Evans to sort of take advantage. So it didn't quite work out entirely with Techeetah. Even though they locked out the front row, they couldn't quite control the races I think they may have hoped to do. Nonetheless, they came away with second and fourth, and it definitely feels like Jean-Eric would be... I feel like it's more of a natural thing the way it's played out, that Jean-Eric has simply been faster more often than not this season and been able to get more out of the car, whereas Da Costa, yeah, he's been very quick on occasion, but he's also been quite unlucky and things haven't quite played out his way often enough for him to really be a factor in this championship. I think he's down in 10th, while Jev is in second, only about 5 points off the lead. So with 7 races left to go, yes, it's a very condensed season, but inevitably there will be a few decisions, I think, later on this season that may go to work to the benefit of Jean-Eric. And it's some other teams, I think it's a little bit closer with Van Dorn in first and De Vries in sixth in the standings. And I think De Vries, again, another driver, world champion last season, but he's had a lot of misfortune in the current campaign. Like he got a puncher today, sort of out of nowhere, which just sort of ended his race while he was looking good for top 7, top 6 maybe at the end of it. So it's one of those things where I think often you can say, oh, well, there'll be team orders, but also I think it's down to whether you can do the job when you need to. And it's because, as we've seen this season with some of the drivers at the back who are especially struggling to get on top of Formula E, you really need to sort of build up momentum and keep it going. And it's very hard if you have a difficult start to really catch back up, especially when you've only got 7 races left. So yeah, to me, there's a sort of, it's not a straightforward answer. There's a sort of mix. It depends on the situation, also depends on the team. But I think for a lot of the front runners, it's starting to see which way the wind's blowing, and it's going to inevitably impact the title running.
Yeah, momentum in racing of any kind is always super important. And when the lights went out, it was Mitch Evans who started from P3, who made the best start to challenge Antonio Villas da Costa into turn 1. But after just 2 laps, the safety car was called as Oliver Rowland lost his front left tire at turn 1 and retired on track. On the restart, Evans made the move on da Costa for second down at the widest turn 1 on the calendar and went after Vergne for the lead. And you said on the watch along commentary with Josh that it was more like a traditional Formula E race. Could you expand on why this track is different to others we race at in the series?
Yes, I can try. Well, essentially, it's a custom-built sort of course, essentially, in the middle of Ancol in central Indonesia, in Jakarta. So effectively, it's built sort of near a little stadium where I believe Josh said a friend of his went to like the World Boxing Championships, if I remember correctly. Josh will probably instantly correct me, and I'm probably completely misremembering that, but it was something of that nature that took place in the stadium, and Josh had a friend who was slightly involved in that. So he had a sort of minor claim to fame of knowing a little bit about how hot it was based on what his friend told him. I've got, of course, Jack Pickering there, who was actually there this weekend. I believe is still there at the moment. And he's
been giving us some great interviews and some. I think I've just uploading at the moment his wrap-up show where he explains each team's fortunes in the race. Yeah, the circuit was effectively sort of built in a very short time frame as well by Jack Pro, which I believe is the local sort of construction authority. And essentially, I think they build it. Usually, these things they take like maybe a couple of months, maybe, and I think they've tried to compress it into maybe a month and a half, or something like that. And there was an incident, I think, a little bit before the race, which I think had a few people on edge slightly, which is where there was some bad weather, some storms, and basically one of the grandstands collapsed, unfortunately. Luckily, it was fixed in time for the race, sort of overnight, and there were no incidents during the actual event itself. But there was a lot of also political stuff behind the scenes. Anies Baswedan, the governor of Jakarta, is very much behind the event, and there were a lot of things that basically a lot of people who were complaining back in 2020 that there was a pandemic and there was a lot of flash flooding in Jakarta, and the money was going towards this Formula E race, which they couldn't hold because of the pandemic, and they obviously had to wait a couple of years to host it now. And certainly the track itself designed very well. Like I said, a good mix of fast flowing corners, lots of unexpected places you could overtake. Another interesting thing about it was the attack mode activation zone, which is, of course, the little thing they have instead of pit stops, essentially. And Stoffel Vandoorne was saying when Jack Pickering talked to him that he tried to drift because it's sort of it was kind of a double apex kind of corner, this attack mode, in order to reach the activation zone, which is, of course, the little red line. You can afford to sort of miss the blue line, but you've got to hit the red line exactly in order to activate it. And Vandoorne said, well, I drifted in completely and somehow managed to hit it and get it activated properly. But then I tried to go in normally without drifting, and it just didn't work. So he was sort of joking he should have just drifted every time. But it's not really the fastest way to drive in Formula E most of the time, unless you're someone like Robin Freins, who incidentally had a terrible race today after crashing in qualifying. So it was interesting to hear Vandoorne say that, because effectively missing that attack mode, and he wasn't the only one. Sebastian Buemi, who also qualified quite well in the top 6 in the Nissan for a change, also missed his attack mode activation at one point and lost a couple of places. Felt he could have finished a bit higher if he had been able to avoid that. So, of course, it's a bit dusty offline. There were lots of little mistakes. I mentioned Da Costa letting Evans through unintentionally earlier. So it's a well-designed track. It's sort of a custom-built track, so it's not a sort of surface that gets used for most of the year, as I understand it. And, it led to a very entertaining race in the heat, and some of the teams coped with the temperatures better than others. So, certainly the circuit gets a big thumbs up from me, and we'll have to a lot of people were saying we hope we come back in the future, and I sort of hope to see it come back too, because it led to a pretty, like you say, a pretty tense and pretty competitive race with the top 3 cars right at the end. Mortara, Verne, and Mitch Evans all sort of in a line, basically trying to not run out of energy in the dying moments of the race.
I totally agree with you, Ed. It's really nice to see the Jakarta E-Prix be very successful in Formula E's very first stop to Indonesia. I thought they also did a really great job designing the track, saw a lot of action overtaken. It definitely didn't disappoint. And also, hopefully, the Jakarta E-Prix will return because I have a feeling it might become a fan favorite on the calendar year after year if they're able to come back. And looking at the crowd, seemed like we had a really great crowd for the race as well. So that's a nice thing too. And further back, Sam Burt was making impressive moves along with Sebastian Buemi, who started 5th but finished 10th, with Burt taking P9. The race developed into a 3-way battle between Jean-Eric Vergne, Mitch Evans, and Eduardo Mortara. And towards the end of the race, Evans caught Vergne, and everyone watching sleeping and made a brilliant move up on the inside into turn 6 to take the lead. The race was extended by 90 seconds due to the safety car, and it resulted in an extra 2 laps of racing with only 4% battery power. Mortara had more energy than Evans and Vergne, but failed to make the moves, and with all 3 coasting across the line, it resulted in Mitch Evans taking his 3rd victory of the season, with Vergne in 2nd and Mortara in 3rd, rounding out the podium. So as we now only have 7 races left to go in the season, as you mentioned, are we starting to see the top 4 split away from the rest of the group and become the title favorites? And who would you say is a driver we need to focus on in this final stretch of races?
Yeah, well, certainly Vandoorne and Verne with the leads they've got at the moment. It's pretty tight, of course, because you basically got from Mitch Evans on 109 points, and you've got Vandoorne on 121 if I do some very, very quick calculations, that is about a 12-point lead then, essentially between the top four. And I certainly think those four would be, you'd say on paper, would be the favourites, because all three of them, apart from Vern, who's just been really, really consistent, have all won races. Mitch Evans has won 3 races, but of course, the races that he hasn't won or finished on the podium, he's tended not to score too well, which is why he's down in 4th. Because, of course, Berlin was a bit of a blip, and I think the beginning of the season, Mexico and Saudi Arabia, he didn't score particularly on those 3 races rather, either. So, it certainly would seem that consistency and being able to just pull out wins when you need them is a big deal. And you certainly think it seems the way things were swinging. We've had this weekends where either the Mercedes powertrain in the back of Van Dorn and Mortara's Venturi and Mercedes cars, so respectively, it's either that one that's on top, or it's the DS or the Jaguar or the which we saw today. The DS and Jaguar are very, very strong, especially in qualifying, but more in the race in terms of the Jaguar, especially, as you say, with Bird making some fantastic moves a bit lower down the order to get up to 9th, which was good to see, because Sam Bird has had a very difficult season. He's probably not someone who's going to be able to pull out in terms of the championship. In terms of can anyone catch up to those top 4, I think is the big question. I think Robin Freins had a difficult day today, as I said. Just got qualifying run, started near the back, and then just sort of struggled to make progress. But I think we've seen the Audi powertrain, the back of the Envision, has had its really strong moments. Monaco and Rome, it was very, very strong indeed. And I really think Robin Freins is a driver that can pull out good results, even almost unexpectedly. And also, I have a feeling that Freins might also be looking for the exit door Envision next season. So he definitely wants to leave on a high, because a lot of rumours that with At Sport coming back, that Robin Freins might move to the At team when it reforms, because he has some links there historically as a company, I believe, that he sort of owns, that's sort of got big associations with At. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Freins maybe sneak a win or another couple of podiums to get himself back in the hunt, because he's only about how many points behind Evans? It was about just over 20 points, I think, 27 points or something like that, which you might think is a lot, but in the scheme of things, if he has a double header in, say, New York after Marrakesh that's coming up in a month's time that goes his way, then I could see Robin Freins sneak back into it. But for the guys behind, for Nick De Vries, Lotter, Verline, De Grassi, Da Costa in the top 10, I think it could be a bit trickier for them to work their way in. Especially, I think the Porsches, if they have a few more Mexico-like weekends where they get 1-2s, I could see it maybe happening. But I think at the moment, the momentum seems to be with that top 4 that we mentioned: Van Dorn, Vern, Mortara, and Evans. And I think if there's just one of them that we have to focus on, I would say I think Vern certainly had a very strong performance today and could have won it. But I think he's definitely going to be very, very keen to get a win this season, especially because he's another driver that we know will be switching teams at the end of the season. From Techeetah, he's going to move with the DS Automobiles company to Dragon. So at least that's what the rumor is that Sam Smith from the race was reporting. So I really think it's a matter of whether Van Dorn can hold on, whether Vern can get that first win, whether Mortara can keep scoring podiums because his consistency has been really strong, and whether Mitch Evans can sort of cancel out those sort of anonymous weekends where Jaguar aren't scoring as many points as they really should be. And if we can get them all performing brilliantly, then we could be in for a really amazing four-way showdown when we get to Seoul in August. And I think that would be quite something to savor.
And Ed, we thank you for your time as always, and let our viewers know to be sure to subscribe to Formula E Zone on YouTube and all throughout social media. And the next time that Formula E is on track is in Marrakesh, Morocco. And the next time Formula E is on track, I believe it's at the Marrakesh E-Prix in Morocco. So, Ed, we thank you for your time as always. And now, Obie and I will take you through the rest of the show. And we'll start with IndyCar at Belle Isle Park for the last time before they head back to the streets in 2023.
Yeah, and Ed, definitely want to thank you for your time today. Looking forward to hearing your insights the next time around. I believe in early July when it's time for the Marrakesh Prix in Morocco. I always love hearing what you have to say. Everything Formula E. And next, moving on, as Adam said, to the NTT IndyCar Series, which is currently qualifying right now while we're in the air. They head to Belle Isle Park in Detroit for the final time because the race is moving to downtown Detroit in the year 2023. Not much time for the 2022 Indy 500 champion Marcus Ericsson to soak in his crown jewel win. He got to celebrate a little bit and now has to reset his mind. He's the championship points leader entering Detroit and has a title to fight for. Belle Isle is also the site of Ericsson's first career IndyCar win. Adam, will Ericsson carry the momentum from winning the Indy 500 into Detroit and emerge as a major championship threat?
I do believe so, Kobe. And his sponsorship, Husky Chocolate, is getting a lot of people want that here in the United States after Ericsson's victory at the Indy 500. So hopefully we'll see some Husky Chocolate. Hopefully we'll see some Husky Chocolate milk in the stores sometime this year. And you mentioned, Kobe, this is a special place for Ericsson as it is home to his first IndyCar victory. And I can say I wouldn't count Marcus Ericsson as a title contender. He's currently leading the standings after Indy 500 was a double points race. But now we go back to single points, and don't count out Marcus Ericsson. I believe he wants to win the championship really, really badly.
Yeah, try to win the championship really, really badly. As you mentioned, Adam, that Husky chocolate. It looks so delicious. I'm so envious of everyone in Europe because they can get their hands on it and we cannot. But as Husky chocolate is figuring out the U.S. market, win on Sunday, sell on Monday. And there's a lot of Americans who have money in their hands ready to buy some Husky chocolate. Maybe if we're lucky, they can open a Husky chocolate factory here in the United States. I'm sure a lot of people are going to start buying it. I know I'll be ready to try out some Husky chocolate. It looks so good. And getting back to the point on Marcus Ericsson, I believe he can carry the momentum from winning the Indy 500 in Detroit. As I mentioned, you talked about it as well, Adam. This is the first sight of his very first IndyCar win. And I remember the day Marcus Ericsson won for the first time. He was so happy because that was the first time I believe he's won since his junior category days before he got into Formula One. So it was a win that was a long time coming. And also showed Marcus that he made the right decision to leave Formula One and go into IndyCar racing because in IndyCar he was able to get in a really good car that was capable of fighting for the win and contending for the championship. And Marcus has really developed into a solid NTT IndyCar Series driver. And I think it's time that people put some respect on Marcus Ericsson's name and take him seriously as a championship threat because I believe Marcus Ericsson can be consistent, can contend for wins the rest of the season. He's going to have that momentum, and I believe he might be the reason why his teammate Alex Palou may not repeat this year. But the championship is really wide open for in IndyCar this year because you also have Pato O'Ward up there as well, and some of the drivers who didn't have a good Indy 500 last Sunday on Memorial Day weekend. Renus VK, Roman Grosjean, Scott McLaughlin all crashed. Colton Herta's backup car had no speed after flipping on car day. He ended up retiring from the race. It was Scott Dixon's race to lose, and he blew it by speeding on pit road. 21st place finish at Indy really hurt him in the points. He's currently sixth in the standings and 60 points behind championship leader Marcus Ericsson entering Detroit. Which driver who had a bad finish at Indy has the best shot at bouncing back at Detroit?
One driver that I got to look out for is Scott McLaughlin. As we talked about it during our coverage of practice for the Indy 500, he had his family there, all the way from New Zealand, and so unfortunately he crashed out with his family there. So, and he wanted to make a good impression with them at the track. But now we're back on a road course. And Scott McLaughlin's first career win came at a road course. on the opening race weekend at St. Petersburg, Florida. So Scott McLaughlin wants to bounce back, and he drives for Team Penske. It's Detroit is a huge automotive city here in the United States, and you could sort of say it's you're going to have people there from Chevrolet tomorrow, and he wants to make a good impression on them going through the rest of the season. So one driver I got to look out for is the Kiwi, Scott McLaughlin.
Yeah, not just Scott McLaughlin, Adam. All the Chevy drivers want to do well in GM's backyard. And then next year, they're going to be racing right in front of the Chevrolet headquarters. I know across the Detroit River from Belle Isle Park, you can't see the Chevy headquarters on the skyline, but they're going to be right next to it next year. And always coming to Detroit, you definitely want to do well if you're representing General Motors. And I'm going to go with the elder Scott as one driver I think who has the best chance to bounce back. That's Scott Dixon. We remember last Sunday, it looked like he was going to win his second Indianapolis 500. He had the fastest car. Everything was going right for Scott Dixon. That was his race. And unfortunately, we saw a rare Scott Dixon mistake where he almost lost it on pit road, and he accelerated, got that pit road speeding penalty, and that ruined the rest of his race. And looking at him post race, he was gutted. He was absolutely gutted and dejected because he knew that was his race. That they had the right car, had the perfect strategy. Everything had gone well except for that very final pit stop. And it just goes to show you, isn't it's not over until it's over. And you can win the race on pit road and you can lose it on pit road. And Scott Dixon definitely lost it there. And I think he's going to be fired up and motivated from that awful finish at Indy to try to bounce back and get back in this championship fight. 60 points sounds like a lot, but in the IndyCar Series, things can change really fast. You can see some of the drivers who are ahead of Dixon in the championship run into trouble, like Marcus Ericsson, Pato O'Ward, Alex Palou, and Scott Dixon have a great race, and he could very well be back in the hunt for the championship. We still have many races to go in this season, so this championship is not even close to being over, and Scott Dixon is more than capable of getting back in the championship hunt to try to win his 7th IndyCar title. And one of the biggest surprises on Friday was rookie Kyle Kirkwood been the fastest in the very first practice session on the weekend. His strong start to the weekend for AJ Foyt Racing comes after Andretti Autosport announced that Kirkwood would replace McLaren SP-bound Alexander Rossi in the number 27 Auto Nation Honda starting in 2023. We'll also talk about this story on Grit Tonight on Wednesday as well. Kirk was also pulling double duty this weekend, running Vassar Sullivan's Lexus in the IMSA race later today. And Kirkwood actually won the pole in the GTD class. So Kirkwood knows what he's doing next year, and now he's focused on putting AJ Foyt's number 14 Chevrolet back in victory lane for the first time since Takuma Sato won at Long Beach back in 2013. So almost an entire decade since AJ Foyt Racing has gone to victory lane. Could Kirkwood surprise us and get some great results for AJ Foyt Racing before going back home to Andretti?
I do believe so, Kobe. He has a lot of momentum this weekend. As you mentioned, he won the pole for the GTD class for the IMSA race. And I mentioned Kyle Kirkwood is a name that you need to look out for in the future in the IndyCar Series. Well, if he has some really good runs through the rest of the year, he's a name you may have to start looking at right now. He drives for legendary owner AJ Foyt, and AJ Foyt is well known in the motorsports industry. So Kirkwood probably surprised everybody by being fastest in second practice. I wouldn't count out Kyle Kirkwood for some top 5s and top 10s going for this year. And wait till next year. IndyCar Nation, Kyle Kirkwood is going to be a championship contender because he's at Andretti Autosport. He comes home after winning the Indy Lights Championship at Andretti Autosport just a few years ago. Watch out for the name, Kyle Kirkwood.
Yeah, Kyle Kirkwood is a name we're gonna have to keep watch on in the NTT INDYCAR Series for many years to come. I agree with you, Adam. I think he's eventually gonna become a yearly championship contender with Andretti Autosport and do really great things in this series. I think he's gonna win a lot of races and be in contention all the time. And I believe Kirkwood actually got a top 10 earlier this year on the streets of Long Beach. Really impressive to do in that AJ Foyt racing car. And I think he could definitely get a few more top tens throughout the rest of the season. I don't know if he's going to be able to win in that number 14 Chevrolet, but I think as I said on Wednesday night during Grid Tonight, I think it's super important that Kirkwood is at AJ Foyt Racing this year. He's in a lower pressure environment, not expected to perform right away, so he can make mistakes and learn here. And then when he goes to Andretti Autosport, there's going to be a lot more pressure on him next year to perform, to go out there, try to win races. So I feel like when a rookie is in a low pressure environment, they can learn as much as they can without having much criticism against him. So definitely watch out for the name Kyle Kirkwood. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with for many years to come in IndyCar competition. And we had an incident-filled second practice session this morning right before qualifying that's happening right now. Alexander Rossi was fastest and yesterday's fastest driver. Kyle Kirkwood crashed into the tire barrier, struggling with the brakes, and we do have an update on Kyle Kirkwood's hand in that crash. Unfortunately, Kyle Kirkwood suffered a hand injury, so that's something to follow for the rest of this weekend in the IndyCar Series. See if Kyle's gonna be able to tough it out and race in today's IMSA race in the IndyCar race. Yeah, because that hand really seems to be bothering him. So hopefully he'll be all right to continue for the rest of this racing weekend. And his team, and the guy he's replacing next year at Andretti Autosport, Alexander Rossi, is having a really strong start to the weekend in the top three in both practice sessions leading up to qualifying. The number 27 Andretti Autosport Honda might be a contender for the win in Detroit. This comes after a strong finish in the Indy 500 and the announcement that he'll move to Arrow McLaren SP next season. With the worst kept secret in the paddock finally out, will we see Rossi be able to solely focus on winning races and possibly end his time with Andretti with at least one final win?
I do believe so, Kobe. We all know where Alexander Rossi is going next year. Now he hasn't had a really good couple of years at Andretti Autosport. Alexander Rossi wants to go out on a high at Andretti, and I think, and you mentioned he's been really strong in practice. Could Alexander Rossi win for the first time in a couple of years this weekend in Detroit? Well, everything the way it's shaping up now, he is a contender for the win. And I wouldn't be surprised that he does wheel his number 27 car into victory lane. He knows where he's going next year, but he wants to have a solid finish at Andretti Autosport before he moves over to Arrow McLaren SP for the 2023 season.
Yes, for sure. And sometimes I feel like when situations are happening like Alexander Rossi's, that when you're unhappy where you are, when there's so many questions about your future, it can be a major distraction and really impact your performance on the racetrack. And now that the news is out that he will be joining Arrow McLaren SP and what could potentially be the strongest lineup in IndyCar next year. Got Pato O'Ward there. Not really sure what's going to happen with Felix Rosenquist. I know there's been some rumors in the media this week that we're potentially replacing Rosenquist. That Arrow McLaren SP might be targeting Renus VK from Ed Carpenter Racing, or the surprising thing we heard from media members that potentially they could steal Alex Palou away from Chip Ganassi Racing. And if you had Rossi O'Ward and any of those drivers, that's going to be one potent driving lineup. But also, Arrow McLaren SP said that Felix Rosenquist is doing everything he needs to do right now to keep his ride. Regardless, Arrow McLaren SP definitely a team on the rise, getting stronger each and every week, and adding Rossi to that lineup next year. We're definitely gonna have to watch out for that team in 2023 and beyond. And I think with everything behind him now, I believe Rossi is going to be able to focus on getting the best results he can with Andretti Autosport, and I see him potentially winning at least once or twice the rest of the season. As you mentioned, Adam, Rossi hasn't won for several years now, and I believe that win streak, that streak which he hasn't won, I think that's going to end at some point in the future because coming off a strong Indy 500, great finish there, and now showing up to Belle Isle looking very fast off the truck. Rossi might very well go to victory lane on the streets of Detroit this week. And now a quick update from the World Rally Championship in Italy that's underway, and with Thierry Neuville led the first day of action, but that didn't last long as he felt tonight. By Friday, Ottonic has been leading all day Saturday and is looking for his first win of 2022, which will be his first for Hyundai of the 2022 season. More updates on Grid Live wrap up of the final result from Italy tomorrow. And shifting gears now to the NASCAR Cup Series, heading off to World Wide Technology Raceway, aka Gateway, for their first Cup event. It's a 1.25 mile oval between 9 to 11 degrees of banking in the four turns, located near the city of St. Louis. A move to bring fans closer to the action, a sellout, actually. Many drivers have experience here from their time in Trucks or Xfinity, but a handful of drivers have never raced here before, period, including defending Cup champion Kyle Larson. Chase Briscoe won the pole a short while ago. Austin Cindric started alongside him on the front row. Could drivers who already have laps at Gateway in the past have an advantage over those like Larson who have never been here, or is it an even playing field?
I think, Colby, if you have experience here at Gateway, I think that is a key. I think that it's a key thing to have because it may have been in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series, but it's still laps there. And it's the first, and it's actually, so I think if you have experience in either the Xfinity Series or the Truck Series at World Wide Technology Raceway, I still want to call it Gateway. But I think that's a key thing to have. And actually, Worldwide Technology Raceway is now the fourth Illinois track that NASCAR has raced at. So previous times NASCAR's went to Chicagoland Speedway. There was a track called Santa Fe Speedway back in the day. Yeah, even NASCAR ran at Soldier Field, home of the NFL Chicago Bears. So I see NASCAR back in Illinois. If you've been watching NASCAR for a while, you know about the Wallace family. They've had a lot of success in NASCAR. So, and they're from St. Louis. So kind of nice to see NASCAR back there in Illinois.
And the word I was looking for when we were talking about Alexander Rossi was winless streak. That's the word I was looking for. I had it on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't really think of it at the time. But getting back to NASCAR at Gateway, I actually think having past experience won't matter as much as we think it will. I think it's really mostly an even playing field because of the new next gen cars, the way it's driving. I know we'll get into the driving part of the next gen car in just a few moments, but I really don't think whether you run trucks, Xfinity here in the past, I don't think it's gonna I really don't think it's going to matter as much. I think it's gonna be even Steven and when you're picking a winner for this race, I think it could be really anyone who qualified in the maybe top 10, top 15. But I think a lot of drivers are mentioning track position is going to be really key this weekend. And NASCAR going to Gateway after so many years, people asking for a race here. Sure, a lot of people are going to be extremely excited for this race in the Midwest. And we're now in the second half of the regular season, 11 different winners so far, 5 away from being 16 winners with 11 more races to go until the playoffs. Some drivers are already nearing a must-win situation. Chris Buescher, 21st. He's missing the race due to COVID, which is really going to hurt him points-wise. Bubba Wallace, 23rd. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 24th. And Brad Keselowski down in 30th, only 2 points ahead of Corey LaJoie in 31st. RFK Racing isn't really having the best season. The big points penalty put Brad Keselowski in a hole. Both drivers crashed out of the Coca-Cola 600. RFK Racing, Chris Buescher flipping multiple times on the front stretch. His bad week continued because as I mentioned, test positive for COVID-19. So Truck Series regular Zane Smith is going to be making his NASCAR Cup Series debut in the number 17 Ford Mustang. In your opinion, Adam, do you think these drivers are really entering a must-win situation this weekend?
Yes, I really do. And we want to wish Chris Buescher a healthy recovery, and hopefully he'll be back with RFK Racing at next weekend on the road course in Sonoma, California. But I think it's truly a must-win weekend. Almost, it's almost summertime, and we're getting close. So this is a must-win situation for all the drivers you mentioned, Hobie. Don't have much time until the playoffs start, so you gotta figure out which tracks you'll be good at to contend for a win. We do have Daytona coming up, and Bubba Wallace finished second in the Daytona 500, so he could win there. But I think, especially with Brad Keselowski, he's going to have to find a way to get wins soon. Otherwise, he'll be missing out on the playoffs in his first year at RFK Racing. I don't think anybody expected that.
Yeah, probably not before the start of the season. And I believe a lot of the drivers on the list I mentioned, they're probably going to have to already go in must-win mode. I know it seems crazy to say with only 11 races to go in the playoffs, but it's true, right? Because that big points penalty hurt him early on in the season, and he's just finally clawing his way back into the top 30 in points. I think Brad is definitely in a must-win mode right now. His focus certainly has to be on that final race of the regular season at Daytona International Speedway. Realistically speaking, that's probably going to be his best chance of winning. I know Josh picked Brad Keselowski to win in his pick a winner, but I don't really see Brad being a contender this weekend at Gateway. RFK Racing still growing as a team, trying to build faster cars. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for Brad. So right now he has to try to do the best he can week in and week out. Maybe get lucky on a strategy call where he's on the lead lap, he stays out everybody else's pit, and then he's able to hold them off and get the win. That's probably going to be one of his best shots. And also, as I mentioned, the wild card race at Daytona International Speedway, and Chris Buescher, 21st in points. Oh man, testing positive for COVID is really going to hurt him badly in the points. He's gonna slide on down the standards, and that's definitely gonna put Chris Buescher in a must-win situation. With some of the speed we've seen from Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Bubba Wallace lately, I'd actually you actually can't count down on potentially still in a win at some point. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. started the season off terribly, and that team has really turned it around in recent weeks. So I could see Ricky Stenhouse Jr. getting some really good runs, and Bubba Wallace, that number 23 Toyota Camry has really shown a lot of speed on a mile-and-a-half races in recent weeks. If they can put together a complete race, not get caught up in mess or have issues on pit road, if it wasn't for all of that, I think Bubba Wallace would definitely be a lot higher in the points. So that team is just looking to try to have a good result and come out of Gateway with a great points day. And last weekend, the Coca-Cola 600 was a good night for Toyota. Had all of them up front until the big one, claimed both 2311 cars and Martin Truex Jr. Denny Hamlin took the win. Kurt Busch won the Kansas points race before the All-Star race. And this weekend, going to a brand new track in the Cup Series. There's going to be a lot of unknowns. Can Toyota make it 3 in a row with another strong performance in Gateway?
I do believe so, Kobe. And even though Chase Briscoe drives the Ford on the pole, and Austin Cindric also drives the Ford starting a long time, I would not cannot Toyota going for 3 in a row. Especially since Denny Hamlin won the Coca-Cola 600 last weekend. He has to have a lot of momentum coming here to Gateway. Kyle Busch, his teammate, finished second, also in a Toyota. So I would not count out Toyota to get a win tomorrow. So I could say Toyota's going to win tomorrow, but I won't reveal who my picker winner is until the end of the show. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I think Toyota could easily make it 3 in a row tomorrow after Kurt won at Kansas and Denny won the Coke 600. But I'm actually not going to go with a Toyota driver winning this weekend. I'm going to go with a Chevrolet driver. And as Adam said, stay tuned to see who it could be. I know the Fords had a good run and qualified today with Briscoe winning the pole and Austin Cindric on the front row. But I think a Chevrolet driver who made the final round of qualifying and starting in the top 10, I think that driver is gonna get the job done. And there's a lot of talk about shifting here at Gateway with the new Cup cars. With this being a shorter track, some are concerned we might see a disappointing race because of the lack of action at places we've already seen this year, like Richmond and Martinsville. The new car hasn't performed well on the shorter tracks yet for the most part. Motorsports journalist Daniel McFadden posted a quote from Ryan Blaney, who said that passing during the race is going to be rare, and when a driver gets stuck behind somebody, they won't be able to do anything with that. And as Kyle Busch likes to say, plowing, plowing, plowing. So that might be the story of this race, and we certainly hope not. And if Gateway produces another disappointing race on the shorter tracks, is it time for NASCAR to make changes in the middle of the season to improve the racing?
Yeah, Kobe. I think you may have to use the bump and run to get around somebody tomorrow at Gateway. I'm surprised that the racing at the shorter track hasn't been really good. But I think, but to me, if NASCAR wants to improve this next gen car on the short tracks, I think they will have to make some changes because a lot of NASCAR fans love racing on the short tracks because it's normally produces a lot of excitement. So I think NASCAR should make a change to improve racing on the short tracks sometime this year.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of NASCAR fans really don't like it when NASCAR make a change in the middle of the season. They rather it happen before the start of the season instead of in season. But I think that you can make a case here that this is a change that is sorely needed. And in a strange way, this is like a strange role of reversal. We're used to seeing the best racing in NASCAR happen on the short tracks, and then the mile and a halves are disappointing. But this year with the new next gen car, the mile and a half tracks have been very exciting for the most part. If you toss out the Texas All Star race. And then the short tracks have been very disappointing. Not much action going on at all. And Corey LaJoy mentioned that NASCAR is considering making some changes during the season to try to improve things, to take some downforce off the cars and remove the diffuser underneath the car. I know the diffuser helps with the dirty air in the mile and a half, but it really seems like that could be hurting the NASCAR Cup Series stock cars on the shorter track. So it's going to be interesting to see what NASCAR is going to do moving forward. But I think if Gateway is another disappointing race, NASCAR is going to have to speed up the efforts to try to improve the on-track product because NASCAR on short tracks on the shorter ovals than the mile and a half. So that's what the sport grew up on, and that's what a lot of people want to see. People love their short track racing, and they don't want to see the on-track product at those tracks get hurt by this new next-gen car. So I'm sure the changes that Corey LaJoy mentioned, less downforce, removing the diffuser, that's something NASCAR will look into, and it may or may not help the racing. And I know some of the drivers are concerned that we're not going to see much passing this weekend or a lot of action, but you really don't know what you're going to get until the drop of the green flag and we see some of the on-track action itself.
And it's going to be interesting to see how everything develops at Gateway. I wish they would have stuck with Gateway International Raceway instead of World Wide Technology Raceway. Easy for the fans to understand. And now, with that all being said, it's now time for everybody's favorite game here at Grid Network: Pick a Winner. And we take a look at our leaderboard. Kobe's on top with 22. I'm at 16. Alex Fleener from Twitter is 1 point behind me. colleague Ben Schneider is at 12, and Matt White and Joe Samaniego are tied for 5th with 11. So let's get started. First up, MotoGP is at the Circuit de Catalunya in Spain. Josh and Julia broke down the coverage really well, and they went with Alexis Espargaro to win. All right, Kobe, are you going to go with our colleagues and pick Alexis Espargaro to win at Catalonia?
Oh, imagine the scenes if Alicia Spargo is able to win in Catalunya, but I'm actually not going to go with Alicia to get it done this weekend. I think it's going to be the defending MotoGP World Champion. I'm going with the Frenchman. Fabio Quartararo is going to get it done in Catalunya.
Well, I'm going to agree with our European colleagues, Josh and Julia, and I'm going to say that Alexis Espargaro does get it done in front of his home country fans. Fabio Quartararo came close to doing it in France. Unfortunately, he didn't get it done. But I think this weekend, Alexis Espargaro does get it done in front of his home country fans in the country of Spain. Next up, IndyCar hits Belle Isle Park for the last time before moving to the streets of Detroit in 2023. All right, Kobe, who wins here for the very last time at Belle Isle Park?
We talked about him just a short while ago, and I said I believe that he could get one final win with his current team. This may shock some people, but I like what I'm seeing after a strong Indy 500 and a strong start to the weekend in Detroit, and getting into the top 12 in qualifying. As of right now, trying to see if he can get up into the Firestone Fast Six. I think Alexander Rossi, if he qualifies well overall, I think he's going to be in contention to get his first win since I believe the year 2019 at Road America.
And you know, Kobe, I'm going to go with the driver that should have won last Sunday in Indianapolis. Unfortunately, a pit road speeding penalty cost him. But I'm going to stick with the Kiwi, Scott Dixon, over at Chip Ganassi Racing. I think he gets the job done in Detroit. And next, we have NASCAR at World Wide Technology Raceways, also known as Gateway International Raceway for the first time. All right, Kobe, it's a 300-mile race here at Gateway. Who wins the inaugural Cup race in Illinois?
Oh boy. Ross Chastain is going to come around. Racing Redemption at his hands. The wheel for Ross Chastain is still imperfect, and he has done it. Winning at Gateway. I think Ross Chastain is going to get the job done and win at Gateway in the NASCAR Cup Series first visit.
Kobe, you need to be an announcer. I like that call. I really did. And but I think the Toyota streak goes to 4. He didn't win for me in Las Vegas, but you know, I think he can win here at Gateway. So I'm going with Kyle Busch for Joe Gibbs Racing. And next, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series is also at Detroit at Belle Isle Park. With that being said, Kobe, who wins overall in Michigan?
Whenever we come to these street circuits, you always have to look at the Cadillacs. For some reason, the Cadillacs always so strong on the streets. And coming to the streets of Detroit for one final time with them. So those Ganassi Cadillacs look really good. I'm going to go with the pole winners, Sebastian Bourdais, Ringer Van der Zandt, and the 01. I think they get it done in Detroit in front of General Motors headquarters.
Yeah, I'm also going to say that the 01 Cadillac gets it done. It's going to be interesting to see how everything develops. The IMSA race starts later on this afternoon. So with that being said, I'll hand it over to Kobe as we wrap up another edition of the Grid Live pre-race show for a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, beautiful Saturday afternoon here in North Carolina. Not really too hot outside. Oh, thankfully the humidity is down. I also want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe to Good Network here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We encourage you to take 5 minutes after our show and consider joining our Patreon, invest in Good Network to keep us on the air well into the future. Do you want to buy me a coffee? Click the link in the video description below, and you can buy a drink for your favorite unknown talent here at Good Network. And he was here earlier. I want to give a big thank you to Edward Hunter from formerly Zone, Amber, and Zachary for buying us one. We greatly appreciate it. Any amount will help us continue growing our motorsports media outlet. Visit public.com, also known as the stock market social media home. The link below in referral code gives you $5 to invest. And the referral code is GRIDnet. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to properly invest in stock market. And also want to remind everyone to be on the lookout for more content of the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at Portland International Raceway. Joe Sabnego and Ben Snyder on site at the track covering Xfinity and the ARCA Series West races. And then tomorrow we're going to be back on the air for a Grid Live wrap-up 90 minutes after the NASCAR Cup Series race at Gateway. For Julia, Josh, Ed, Joe, Ben, and Adam, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching today's show and enjoy the races.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.